Now let's change our program by changing the interface and the class to be generic. Let's start with the interface here. So our interface is a stack interface, and it's accepting parameter of integer here. We want it to be general or generic, and even the return statement for the pop to be generic as well. So how do we do that? We implement or we put our generic type here. So public interface stack, then generic type. In our case, we are using T. After that, then we can have our T here. If it's a string, then this will be string. If it's an integer, this will be an integer. And the same should be returned. So our elements should be of the same type T. This is our interface. We have changed our interface to be generic. And want this interface to be implemented here. So we need to correct something here. We are implementing it. We need to have a generic class T, and the same should be passed to our interface T. So we have our generic class T, and we are passing the same T to our interface that we are implementing. Okay, let me see what is it saying here. Oh, they must implement the okay, they are complaining of the methods below. Yeah, so we have made it to be generic class implementing a generic interface. We are passing T to the generic interface like that. Then the size will be data type integer. Of course, the capacity should also be an integer. The number of elements here, we are using objects here. So we will leave that one as it is. It will be still object data type. And we are creating our interface, nothing to change there. But the same here, because our n is just for the capacity, which will be an integer. Nothing to change there. But we need to change the push to make it generic. So it's receiving the T as a data type. So that's for the push. And we also need to change for the pop. It has to return the data type T. And it has to actually, it has to cast it to data type T. So if we have created the stack of integers, then this will be an int. If it's a stack of strings, then this element is going to be converted to string, because our elements are of data type object. So we need to convert them when we are actually popping those elements out of the stack. Okay, so let's see if we have another issue to be corrected. Let's see. Looks like everything is now okay. Now we need to find a way of using this. If we come here, we are actually calling it using a row type. We need to call our statement now, knowing that it is a generic class that we are calling. So here we need to specify that we are calling a generic class. We start by calling using integer as a type parameter. Then we can have our integer here as well as our type parameter. So we are making a call to that one. And what else is remaining? Why is it showing some issues? It is the direct reference to form required in that class. Okay, so we seem to have, yeah, so we have made a little bit of change. We are going to use a loop just to display all the elements. Here we have created our stack of type integer, and we are setting 4 integers in that, and using this loop we are getting our element as a stack. I mean using the stack pop, and that element will be returned as an integer because we have created this using integer parameter type. So after that we can display our element here. So this is just a display, but the part that is very important is that we are now using the generics here. We are passing the parameter type for us to create an object of stack. So this is our program. Now we're going to test it, but just to review what we have done before we test our program, we started with the interface. Our interface, we have added this type parameter which we are using instead of the actual data type. We are now using type parameter in our parameters as well as in our return type position. Okay, then after that we had to also implement a generic type for our class. So we have our parameter type here, and the same has been passed to our stack which we are implementing as our interface, and we are using that to receive element we want to push. If it's an integer, then this will be an integer, and the element that we are popping out, we are going to have that one as the data type T, which can be integer, can be string, can be whatsoever. Okay, so let's try to run this program and see what we can have at the end. So yeah, okay, so let's test it together. Okay, so I'm running my program here, and I get similar information as before. Running it here, I get similar information than like before. So we have those elements here of integers. Now let's try to change this and maybe use a string instead of an integer. We should now create using string. We want the stack of string elements. So we are now pushing strings instead of integers. Maybe Ketiwe here, and we can have another one here, maybe Kiara here, and we can have another one here, maybe Jane. Then lastly we can have another one here, maybe Esther, as our element. So we are sending string data type as our parameter type. Here we need now to receive it as a string, and we are going to display that. We are done. Okay, let's try this one together. We've just changed the type of data that we are sending to the same interface and the same class. So if we run this one, we are getting now the strings instead of numbers. We are using the same class to actually process different things. You can even have objects. You can have a class and have your objects created for that class, and those objects can be pushed into into this stack, and it can be popped out of that stack. Okay, maybe let's try just to do that. We are going to create a class, a new class, and we are going to call this one, we just call this one maybe okay, we just call this class ABC class, abc.java. So we finish, and this class, we just want it to have two methods. The first method should be okay, first method should be the constructor, and this constructor should be receiving something. We'll be receiving a string s, and that string we are going to be private string, maybe a private string name, and the private int h as our ABC class. And here we have s and h and int h, two things that we are having. And here we have name is going to take s, and the age, this dot age going to take h. Okay, so we have our first method that is going to be used to construct our object. Then we can have another one just to display this information. It's just to display what we have in this one. So we are going to have okay, let's just say display details. I'll just say details, and this is going to be public, and it should return something in the form of a string. And it's going to return the following string: name is, and we put the name here. Then we want to have an age, then we put age here. So this is what we are going to return for this object. Okay, now let's create object of those strings. So we are creating our stack, and this stack is going to be of object ABC. So object ABC as our data type, and we are pushing those objects. So we needed to have those objects created first and start pushing them here. So we are going to have our ABC. We can have maybe object 1 or object A, which will be ABC. We can have the same KT, and here we have the age maybe 20, and we can repeat this for individuals. KT, then Kiara, maybe 22, then Jane, maybe 25, then Esther, maybe 18. Yeah, so we have those objects. Now we can push them into our stack. Sorry, we need to have B, C, and D here. Now we can push them into our stack. The first one here should be A. Then we can have another object into our stack, another object into our stack, another object into our stack, like that. So we have 4 objects. Finally, we can get those objects here and display their content here. So our content will be whatever we get from there. It will be received here as a string, as a statement as we saw before, The time is not on our side. I'm going to finish this one next.